So, markets tried to find direction yesterday, and let's just say investors had a lot to process. Hey everyone, it's Wednesday morning, March 11th, and welcome back to Capital Markets Quickie. I'm your host, Endrit Sella, here to break down yesterday's market action in just 2 minutes. Quick note before we dive in. Today's episode is brought to you by AMF Capital, Asset Management Frankfurt. Learn more about our funds and strategies at amf-capital.de. Alright, let's get started. Now, yesterday was a pretty volatile trading session on Wall Street. Stocks swung back and forth as investors tried to make sense of new headlines around the conflict with Iran. By the end of the day, the moves were fairly modest. The Dow Jones Industrial Average finished down about 0.1%, while the Standard & Poor's 500 slipped roughly 0.2%. Meanwhile, the Nasdaq Composite managed to close slightly higher after earlier gaining close to 1% during the session. Much of the volatility came from developments around oil and the ongoing tensions in the Middle East. Oil prices initially dropped sharply before recovering some of those losses. At one point, crude futures had fallen as much as 15% before trimming those declines later in the session. The swings came after conflicting signals from Washington regarding whether the United States had escorted an oil tanker through the Strait of Hormuz, a critical shipping route that has largely been disrupted since the conflict began. At the same time, comments from political leaders added more uncertainty. President Donald Trump suggested the military campaign against Iran was progressing faster than expected and could conclude sooner than originally thought. Now looking ahead, investors are also preparing for 2 key inflation reports coming later this week. Today we get the latest update on the Consumer Price Index, followed by the Personal Consumption Expenditures Index later in the week. And here's the twist. Neither report will fully capture the recent surge in oil prices, which could complicate the Federal Reserve's interest rate outlook. And before we wrap up, let's talk about one company that definitely grabbed investors' attention yesterday: Oracle. The tech giant reported strong quarterly results after the market closed, and investors liked what they saw. Revenue jumped 18% to roughly $17.2 billion, beating expectations. But the real headline was the company's long-term outlook. Oracle now expects revenue to reach around $90 billion by fiscal 2027. Even more impressive, the company said its cloud business could grow between 44% and 48% next quarter, and investors reacted quickly. Oracle shares jumped about 8% in after-hours trading. So overall, a volatile day for markets, with geopolitics, oil prices, and corporate earnings all competing for investors' attention. Alright, that wraps up today's Capital Markets Quickie. Join me again tomorrow morning for more market updates. See you then!